the whole concept of apologizing is confusing to most of us, simply because throughout our childhood, we were asked to apologize, not knowing what we were apologizing for. And the majority of the times we were forced to apologize to people who didn't deserve an apology. So being confused about what an apology actually is, how are we able to teach our children about it so that they can build healthy relationships in their lives? That's what we're going to talk about today. For those who don't know me, my name is Danielle C. Baker. I am the founder and CBO of Being Connected. I'm also a registered early childhood educator with over 20 years experience in the field. I help parents, teachers, and educators navigate the reality of what parenting is now. But don't get it twisted. When you work with me, we're putting the child's needs first. So we're going to have to put our ego and pride aside, and let's get to it. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Talk to Danielle podcast. I am your host, Danielle C. Baker. Before we get started, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to whichever channel you're listening or watching from. And of course, with season 2, this episode is brought to you by the Self-Esteem Doctor Online Academy, the amazing Dr. Simone Alicia. There's a wealth of resources there to help your child with their self-esteem, their confidence, and so much more. So I'm going to add the link in the description and in the comments for you to have a look. It is very, very helpful. So we're going to jump right in today, of course, with apologies. It is when you start kind of digging into it, it is very confusing. And as you grow older and as you meet more people and have different life experiences with different people, you start to redefine your definition of apology. But before we get started, just want to say that there is no wrong answer when it comes to an apology, but understanding what apology means to us will help us determine what our boundaries are, what our non-negotiables are. And this will lead finally to us being able to teach our children about apologies so that they can set their own boundaries. They can evaluate their own non-negotiables and set them up for really healthy relationships, right? Understanding that there is a difference between an apology and manipulation. That's really what it comes down to. So, and it's something that goes really in hand with the love languages. I did an episode about this. It's called What is Love? And it's how to teach love to your children so that they can, have healthy relationships later down the road. It's things that we're not really taught as children. I believe, this is my own personal opinion, that showing your love to somebody, the way you apologize and admitting your faults, has a big part to play in showing somebody your love. Right? We all make mistakes, but how we handle those mistakes is going to determine how somebody loves you or how you love somebody. So it's very important. I think even more important than love itself is what are you willing to do to make sure you don't hurt the person that you love. So following that through, I'm gonna kind of walk over what an apology is and how it's such a struggle for most of us, even as adults, when you see grown adults not being able to apologize properly, and why you giving an apology, you may not understand why that other person is not going to take it as an apology, and to kind of decode all of that so that you can finally teach your children about apologies and what that represents to them and what that represents to you so that you can set them up for healthy relationships. And that's really all it's all about. We weren't taught about this, so we're just kind of navigating through old beliefs or just ignorance, really. That's what it is. And so in order to break the patterns of toxic generational behaviors, we are able to stop it now. And that's what I'm all about, is breaking the cycles, breaking the patterns, and helping our children to have a better life than what we did. So jumping right in with the actual definition of what an apology is. And that's when I started getting really interested in the whole concept of apology languages, because the definition itself is not that helpful, to be honest with you. So the actual definition of apology is a regretful acknowledgement of an offense or failure. That's it. So some people have added to it, over the years and said, or, just admitting that you've hurt somebody, that you have offended somebody. But it's still just the acknowledging that you may have done something wrong. Doesn't mean that you believe that you have done something wrong. It doesn't mean that anything's going to change. You can say, yeah, my bad, but then you keep doing my bad. Is that really an apology, right? When I was telling you the difference between apology and manipulation, that's where it gets a little blurry. So that's where we kind of have to look into what the actual meaning of apology is. It's too vague for people to really understand what that means, because that could mean something different to me as it would to you. And if you look back, when I was saying this is for generations and generations in the introduction, I talked about how we're forced to apologize, not knowing what we're apologizing. We did something wrong as children. Don't forget that we're learning as young children. We are learning how to interact with other people. Our social skills have not been developed. The adults around us are showing us how to behave in a social setting. So if we did something wrong, but we're not aware that we did something wrong because we're not taught the social cues yet, or the adults around us are not showing us through their actions the right way to behave socially. So we do something wrong, we're not aware of it. We're told to tell our friend to be sorry. Say, I'm sorry. We don't know what we did wrong. We just know we did something wrong. We just don't know what. So we say sorry, and then we're teaching the other person, the other child who was hurt or offended or whatever, to accept that with no other explanation. So let's say a child hits you every time they want to use the blocks that you're playing with. We're teaching the child that hits to say you're sorry, but we're not saying say you're sorry because you hit your friend and you hurt them, and that's not acceptable because you don't want to get hit, or you don't want somebody to hit you and hurt you. We just say you're sorry. We don't say anything else. And the child that's just been hit, we're telling them, okay, it's over, but they're still processing this trauma. And then 5 minutes later, they're playing with the blocks. The same child comes over, hits them again, and then the whole thing starts over. Nothing is getting fixed. Nothing is changing, right? So what are we teaching our children? So this is where apology languages, we know a lot about love languages. Everybody talks about love languages. And I mentioned that in the other episode, how that even in itself is not helpful if you don't know what love means to you. If you don't know what love actually is, you don't have a love language. You can't speak love if you don't know what love is, or if you don't understand what love is. It's the same with apologies. And I think the apology languages are much more important in my experience, simply because we all make mistakes. So how we handle our mistakes and how we hold ourselves accountable for our mistakes is very important in our relationships with other people, whether it is just a family relationship, friendly relationship, professional relationship. We're not just talking about love with your partner, but we're talking about across the board, any kind of relationship that you have with anybody in your life, no matter how they show up in your life, right? And this is why also we have such a hard time letting go of people that keep hurting us, because there's, family. We're taught that family is more important than anything, right? Blood is thicker than water, but yet blood is the one that hurts you. So the apologies there are not very healthy, right? So in terms of what an apology language is, it is simply just the way you express and receive apologies. So what does that mean to you? Now, in order to be able to teach your child that, you need to understand it yourself. So I'm going to break down the 5 apology languages and kind of show you what that is. Again, don't forget that there is no wrong way of apologizing. It's entirely up to you how you perceive an apology, how you understand an apology, and how you accept an apology. So there is no wrong way of accepting, receiving, or giving an apology. It's just how you understand it. And this is why it's important to have these conversations, because you need to understand what the people you're interacting with, what that represents to them, so that you can all be on the same wavelength. So when we are forced to apologize, as children without giving a reason, without knowing why we're apologizing. This basically builds up to adults who will apologize, but only because they got caught doing something wrong, right? Like I was giving the example earlier of a child hitting their friend because they want the blocks. They're only apologizing because they got caught hitting their friend, or their friend ratted them out to say, "You hit me," you know. We're already starting those behaviors. So when we're telling our children to apologize without explaining what they did wrong or why they need to apologize, you're raising adults that are just going to apologize because they got called out on their behavior, right? Or you're also raising adults that are accepting apologies multiple times for the same behavior. So the child that gets hit every time says, okay, okay, gets hit again, okay, gets hit again, okay. And now we're raising an emotional punching bag. So on either side of the scale there, we're doing something wrong. It's important to teach our children what an apology is and what that means to them as well. So when we do that, it will help them to set healthy boundaries for themselves and to nurture some healthy relationships in their lives, cut out the toxic relationships out of their lives, because they will understand why they need to cut people out of their lives or why they want to nurture specific relationships. So you have to understand that saying I am sorry, the first thing you want to tell your child is saying I'm sorry is not an apology. Okay, anybody can say that. We are all taught to say that. We don't understand what we're saying. And just the fact itself that saying I am sorry, it's I'm talking about my ego. I'm easing my ego. It has nothing to do with the person that you hit yet, that you've hurt. It has nothing to do with them. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I got caught. I'm sorry I got called out on it. I'm sorry this inconvenienced you. But there's nothing else to it. It's just air that's coming out of your mouth. So say that. Now, of course, they may cause some friction because everybody was raised to say, I am sorry. So you need to have that conversation with your child's teachers, with the family members, to say that's not enough. There's got to be more to it, right? And it's very important to demand that, because clearly we've been doing this wrong for generations, right? So you got to nurture that into your child to say, somebody can say that I am sorry, but if you don't know what they're actually apologizing for, ask them, what are you sorry for, right? Or if they keep doing the same thing to hurt you and they keep saying it, and just call them out on it and say, you have nothing to apologize for. This is a choice for you. You're not sorry. Don't say you're not sorry, but say you got nothing to apologize for. You're going to do it again. So why are you apologizing, right? So there are 5 apology languages. There are actually some tests, just like the love languages, to find out what your love language is. There's some quizzes out there for your apology languages, and that's a very I would recommend people to do it just to find out where they sense. So why is it that sometimes people apologize to you, but it doesn't feel right? Right? You will understand why. You will understand what you're looking for in an apology. So when you're with your partner, when you're with your business partners, when you're with family, you could say, listen, I understand. I appreciate you apologizing, but this is what needs to happen for me to accept your apology, right? That's a good way or healthy way to express to the person that hurts you that you are needing this for them to show that they are truly sorry. So one of the first of the apology languages is expressing regret. So that's the infamous I am sorry, right? It's the common definition. It's regretful acknowledgement of an offense or failure, right? So I'm sorry. And that's one of the ways. And some people are okay with that. And just the fact that you acknowledge that they did something wrong. If you have to ask for it, that's a different thing. But if they say, listen, I'm really sorry. Usually with that, they would usually be a but. Like I'm saying, I'm so sorry, but you provoked me. I'm sorry, but I was in a bad mood. There's always an excuse with it. But expressing regret is one form or one language of apology. Accepting responsibility is like a step further from just expressing regret in this point. It's basically admitting your fault and not making any excuses for it. So that's what accepting responsibility is. That is another language, saying, I am sorry. It was wrong of me to do this. You're acknowledging that you did something wrong, but you're not giving an excuse. I'm so sorry. But there's no, I was in a bad mood, or I told you not to do that. It would get me angry. Or, I had a bad day at work, or all these lovely excuses that people will throw at us. It's the same thing. So that's where the difference between expressing regret and accepting responsibility is, that with accepting responsibility, there's no excuses. My bad. I'm really sorry. There's no excuse. I misbehaved. That was not acceptable, and so on. The other one is making restitution. So it's another step to the accepting responsibility, where now you're offering to make up for the damage or the loss or for the hurt. So you're offering to make up for it, right? I'm sorry, that was really wrong of me. What can I do to fix it? That would be the next step, right? So there's a lot more meat to that apology than just saying, I'm sorry, right? Sorry for what? What are you sorry for? All right, I'm really sorry, my bad. That was wrong of me. I shouldn't have behaved that way. So there's no excuses there. And then, sorry, I shouldn't have behaved that way. I shouldn't have said that. I know I hurt you. What can I do to make it better? What can I do to fix it? So you're showing that there's a willingness to change there. The next language is planned change. So now not only are you apologizing without any excuses, you want restitution, or it's like, how can I fix it? But you're showing in this language with the planned change is that you're actually sincere. There's a sincere desire to change and to avoid repeating the same mistake. So this takes a little bit longer as I understand I hurt you. It was not my intention. I am so sorry. What can I do to fix it? The person tells you what you can do to make them feel better about it and to trust you again. And you're actually going to do it. There's a changed behavior. So that mistake is not going to happen again. So this comes over time. It's just like the analogy that I gave you earlier with the child hitting the other child because they want the toy. Well, in this case, in the plan change, the child will stop hitting when they want the toy. They're going to wait their turn, or they're going to ask nicely, or whatever. So that it's a different language altogether, because now there's action. So it's becoming a verb, right? And the last language, the fifth one, is to request forgiveness. So you're asking the person to forgive you. It's pardon and acceptance. So, can you forgive me? So the request for forgiveness. So looking at these 5 languages, I encourage you to do those quizzes. You just Google it, it'll come up. But understanding your own apology languages, we always have 2 or 3 that are a bit stronger than the other 2. You will understand then the way that you apologize, just like the way you show your love, and the way that you prefer to receive an apology, right? Or the way that you want people to show you how they love you is this kind of the same concept. So understand what your apology languages are, how you give it, and how you like to receive it, so that you can start having conversations with your partner, with your business partner, your coworkers, with your friends and family, and say, listen, I understand, I appreciate you apologizing, but for me, in order to show me that you are truly sorry, this is how how you have to do it, and it's perfectly acceptable. So once you understand your languages and how you apologize to your child and how you apologize to the other child, the other parent, and everybody around them, then it's easier for you to teach your child, listen, this is how it is for me, but what does that mean to you? Did that feel right for you? Did you feel calm, right? Or do you still feel that pain? Did you still feel hurt? You still feel that anxiety, So you can start showing your child and teaching your child about apologies. And the most important thing is, if you have to make your child apologize, be sure that you understand, you explain why they have to apologize. They're learning how to behave socially. So a lot of the times they don't even know. And don't forget that children learn by watching you, not by listening to you. So their entire life, they've been watching how you behave with apologies, how you apologize, and your actions following an apology. So if they watch you apologize for doing something, but then you keep doing that again, that's not an apology. You're not teaching them how to apologize. All right. They're just words. Like I said, there's just air coming out of your mouth. So they learn through watching you. That's why it's important for you to understand what your apology language is, so that you can actually put it into action for your child to see it and say, okay, now I get it. And then they can transfer that over. As they get older and they can understand better, then you can tell them, okay, so what that means, this is, you already know this is how I apologize, or this is how I expect you to apologize to me. But what does that look for you? And talk about the different languages. You know, is saying I'm sorry enough for you, or do you need a little bit more? And you can tell from that. And it's kind of interesting to keep doing this quiz over the years, because depending on the experiences that you will have if you're going through you know, a bad breakup, let's say a divorce, if you're going through a great loss, health changes, right? Things will change. Your personality changes. Your experience will change how you view apologies. So this will change throughout your life, and it'll be the same. Don't expect that if your 3-year-old only expects you to say, I'm sorry, that's not going to be the same when they're 19, 20, 21, right? So just keep updating your language to see what that means to you, and teach your child how to keep kind of doing an upgrade on that. And so it's really through your actions that you're going to be able to teach your child how to properly apologize, to take accountability for their mistakes, and how to expect people to apologize to them when they are wronged, and to make sure that they are not being manipulated by toxic people, or, you know, taken advantage of because of their kindness. So that's pretty much, it's very vague, very general, again, because I'm all about teaching how to teach this to children, right? So we have to keep it simple, not too detailed, because we will lose them. They won't understand. And if we don't quite understand it either, then it's harder for us to explain it if it's on a scientific level, right? So you could do a lot more research on it. I encourage you to do it for yourself first, like I said earlier, to help yourself, you know, make better choices with your connections, and then teach your child through your behaviors. You know, are you backing up your apologies, or you're just blowing air through your mouth? So very, very important if you want your child to have some really healthy boundaries. Be ready for these toxic relationships that they'll end up, it's inevitable, right? They're going to end up with surrounded by some people that are not as positive as others. So it's important to set them up for success when it comes to relationships, or at least to be able to be properly equipped to handle these situations, to recognize what's a non-negotiable for them, in order to be able to set those boundaries and adjust their relationships accordingly. I'm going to leave you with that. Again, don't forget to have a look at the Self-Esteem Doctor Online Academy. There's great resources on that as well. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to whichever channel you're listening or watching from. And until next time, stay safe, stay awesome, and we'll talk soon.